This is another difficult question because the vocabulary is difficult, but we at least should know where to look pretty easily using the chronology rule here. So there's no line reference, but remember, use the chronology rule. And so look, 36 and 38, line 18, line 35. So we're probably somewhere in here. And I'm just going to cut to the chase here. They talk about tendency towards suspicion. We can see, they don't use that word, but universal distrust. I mean, this is a good example of they're not going to use the exact same words, but the ideas are going to be as close to being the same as can be without saying the exact same thing. So distrust, suspicion, in your head, you should just be like, oh yeah, that's literally the same thing, right? Like it shouldn't be any different. You want to be able to connect those dots. So why is it problematic? Why is universal distrust problematic? Let's see what it says here. One great blemish in the popular mind of America and the prolific parent of an innumerable brood of evils, so it's going to tell us what those evils are, what's problematic, is universal distrust. Yet the American citizen plumes himself upon this spirit, even when he is sufficiently dispassionate to perceive the ruin it works. So it's problematic because it ruins him, and will often adduce it in spite of his own reason, So he's distrustful in spite of his own reason, in spite of his own awareness of it, as an instance of the great sagacity and acuteness of the people and their superior shrewdness and independence. I can read here a little bit longer. You carry, says the stranger, this jealousy and distrust into every transaction of public life. By repelling worthy men from your legislative assemblies, it has bred up a class of candidates for the suffrage who, in their very act, disgrace your institutions and your people's choice. So you elect bad people too. So I think we've got it right here. I don't think we really needed those extra lines, and I know that would kind of go past where we're supposed to for the chronology rule. But I think I said this for other questions before, like, you don't need to be set in stone about those lines. You can always read a little extra, get a little more context. There's the different line references for the questions tend to overlap a little bit, so you can read a little bit more. But where we expected the answer to be, it was. So chronology rule checks off here. Now we look at the choices. Let's see if we can get something here. So it's especially problematic because it causes people to be distrustful of their neighbors and acquaintances. Well, if we read that extra, it says they're distrustful of the worthy men, the politicians, but not necessarily their friends and neighbors. And it doesn't really get that specific in that middle paragraph there either. So that's a very specific thing Choice A is saying. It says distrust, but the lines do not say who is being distrusted, right? Like it does not say who they are distrustful of. So this is too specific. This is too strong. Let's look at B. Emboldens people to challenge each other's judgments. No, again, it's not saying specifically what happens. So challenge each other's judgments. No, it's not all of the Americans are like this, he's saying. So they're not against each other. I mean, no, it's not about judgments. C, invites people to act with too great a degree of independence. Well, it does say that that people think that this is a sign of their own independence. This is a tempting choice. The problem I have is too great a degree. Well, what's to say? What's to say what is a good amount of independence and a bad amount, right? I mean, the passage doesn't say that, so that's not good. We would really, whenever we have these words that kind of quantify or compare, we really want to find evidence in the lines of that, and I don't see a comparison here. So let's look at D. I would say that you wouldn't eliminate C, though. I think it's pretty good. D, encourages people to act against their best interest. Well, notice that's kind of what was going on here. The people are distrustful even though they perceive the ruin it works. They're in spite of their own reason. So they know it's bad for them, but they're doing it anyway. And this kind of now bleeds into the next paragraph. By repelling worthy men from your legislative assemblies, it has bred up a class of candidates for the suffrage who in their very act disgrace your institutions and your people's choice. Meaning, because you're so distrustful, you elect bad people who then, ruin your government and make things worse. And so there's a direct example of it working against their best interests. So we do have evidence of that. C is something that I do not see evidence of, and therefore D is better. And that really is what it comes down to a lot of times when you're down to two choices that you think are both kind of right. You really want to find the one that you can point to something in the lines most directly to say, yeah, here's where they say it. Because it might seem reasonable to you that C is correct. Like that is a true thing, a true consequence of being distrustful. But that doesn't matter. We're not being asked what you think, or you're not trying to write your own essay here. We're looking at the lines, and the lines really need to prove it. So we have evidence of D. We do not have evidence of C. Therefore, D is the best. Tough question, hard vocab. But a lot of the things that we did highlight here are things that we kind of understand. Distrustful suspicion, right? Like those are words we should know. And then, in spite of your own reason, in spite of your own thinking, right? Like perceiving the ruin it works. You probably wouldn't say those ideas in those exact words, but hopefully you can turn them back into words that are more understandable and connect them to the choices. It's tough. It's a tough passage.